Hello and welcome to the First Serve's Indian Wells player ratings. It is your host, Jedd here, and I've got my co-host, Will Taylor. Will, thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Jedd. Yeah, looking forward to recapping this tournament. What a tournament it was. Lots of surprises, it's fair to say.
There were lots of surprises, a lot to get through. We're going to give each player a rating, not every player in the draw, but those who we thought had a story to tell. Now, what a crazy day it was today. So we had the 21st seeds on both sides of the men's and women's take out the tournament. I was trying to find out, but I don't know who would have this database. When was the last time the 21st seed won at the same tournament at any level? I reckon it could even be the first time ever.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's a crazy stat, and two great storylines for tennis as well. And we'll talk about each player a bit later. But it is good to see, I think, in an era where people, this is an era for a big extent. It's kind of expect the unexpected at the moment in tennis, both men's and women's tennis. And how exciting. Well, I think it's so exciting. I mean, you see a tournament like this, and genuinely, on your day, there's a lot of players that you can say can win, and both winners of the men's and women's in Indian Wells show that.
Absolutely. I thought Cam Norrie was brilliant. Really, from round one, he was just on his game. And I think you've probably seen that interview from the beginning of the year where he said he's ready to break out. And he said, he's putting pressure on himself and it's a big call, but wow, he delivered. And Ashville, I mean, it was a crazy final, really, in front of a very small packed stand.
Yeah, it was. It was a crazy final. I mean, it was a seesawing battle, but at the end of the day, it was just Norrie's consistency that really got him over the line. He dug deep, and I mean, he's had a fantastic year, 6 finals. We'll talk about him a bit later, but he's been unbelievable, Cam Norrie. What a season.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's get these player ratings underway. So the first one we're going to talk about was the number 1 seed, Daniil Medvedev. It was a weird tournament, I felt. I mean, you feel as if he could have possibly gone all the way if he had just capitalized on a set and a double break lead on Grigor Dimitrov, but just couldn't capitalize, and that was his tournament done.
Yeah, absolutely. 6-4, 4-1 and a double break. He looked absolutely headed to the next round. And then kind of self-destructed. I mean, Dimitrov on 8 games in a row to really turn that game around, or turn that match around. Sorry, it was it was crazy stuff. But Daniil, he's had a magnificent year. Obviously, he's just coming off a Grand Slam title. He even said in his post match he's not too concerned with this result. So, I mean, I've given him a 6 based off the fact that he was the top seed. But I'm not too concerned with Medvedev and his future. He's got bigger fish to fry. But it's not something you see every day. The top seed being 6-4, 4-1 up and losing. So yeah, I've given him a 6.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I gave him a 6 as well. I thought it was a fair rating. I just think, I pretty much agree with everything you've said there. Bigger fish to fry. He's got a couple of big tournaments coming up to end the year. So yeah, and I mean, he lost to a quality player. He didn't lose to, a nobody. Dimitrov is very good. So yeah, I thought it was 6 is about right. We'll move on to Stefanos Tsitsipas. Now, this was another bizarre one. I mean, it was a very bizarre tournament as a whole. How did you rate Tsitsipas?
Yeah, Stefanos seemed to struggle throughout the whole tournament, but he was able to get those wins in the early rounds. It just made me think that he could win the tournament once he got to the quarterfinal stage. He had obviously some struggles early. That match against Diemena was arguably the match of the tournament, and I know we'll talk about Alex soon, but that was a fantastic battle. He was able to get through that one in nearly 3 hours. And then that match against Basilashvili was a strange match. He looked at times that he looked like he was going to run away with it after winning the second set, but yeah, it slipped away from him in the third. And deep in the third, he got outdone, but he did look tired. And he had a number of close calls in the early rounds that I think caught up with him. He was a bit like a cat with 9 lives. It's past this tournament, and the 9th life Basilashvili got him with. So I've given him a 7 because he was able to make the quarterfinals, and he did have a very, very high quality match against Diemena, which I feel was the men's match of the tournament, and he was able to win that. So I have given him a 7 for his quarterfinal run.
Yeah, I agree. I'm the exact same. I've gone with a 7. I also agree that match against Diemena was the match of the tournament for mine on the men's side. And yeah, I didn't think he'd win that game against Diemena. I thought Diemena had him. It looked like he had him. I think he was down a break in the second, broke back. I thought, yeah, this is Alex's for the taking. And Stefanos dug deep, was outstanding in that third set. Diemena didn't drop off at all. So yeah, I give him a 7. Sasha Zverev, semi-finalist, but quarterfinalist was it? But just another bizarre sort of exit from the tournament.
It was another example of Zverev's second serve and serve in general, but really second serve letting him down. I mean, he had this match for the taking against Taylor Fritz, and he got tight. And really, he blew a really good opportunity to win the tournament, because at that stage, you have to remember that Medvedev was out and Tsitsipas was out. So this was a huge opportunity for Zverev, being, the biggest name left in the draw. He was coming up against Taylor Fritz, who I know we'll talk about later, and he played a fantastic match, Taylor, so you don't want to take anything away from him. But, I mean, Alex really had a good opportunity to win another Masters 1000 title. And up until that loss against Fritz in the quarterfinals, the only person who'd beaten Alexander Zverev in recent times was Novak Djokovic at the US Open, and even that in itself was a great match. So I've given Zverev a 7, but there are still some concerns around Alex, around his serve and getting tight, because once again, I felt that it cost him the match and arguably the tournament, him getting tight there.
I completely agree. That was a serving capitulation, really. I mean, up a break, I think it was 2 match points. Once he was landing the serves, his forehands were wild. They were going wide. It was a mess, really. When, he was up, I think it was 4-1. From that point onwards, it was a bit of a mess. And Fritz played really well. So, yeah, interesting. And, hats off to Taylor Fritz. He had a remarkable tournament. We will get onto him shortly. But, I do agree. I gave Zverev a 7 as well. Andrei Rublev, this was an interesting one. Singles wasn't too great. Doubles made it all the way to the final. How'd you view his tournament?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point on doubles. He did make it all the way to the final. And him and Karatsev, even though they are singles players by nature, they are a very, very good doubles team. I watched a couple of their matches. Obviously, they went down in the final, but they're good fun to watch. Man, they hit the ball so hard. It's entertaining. It really is entertaining as a fan. Yeah, Rublev was disappointed with his exit. He came into the tournament as the 4th seed, and he went out reasonably early. He was another one who will see this as a missed opportunity. But at the same time, kind of like Medvedev and like the other top seeds, he does have bigger fish to fry later in the year. I mean, for him, he's next in line to qualify for Turin. So it looks like he will qualify, and that will be big for him. He did play there last year. It was his debut in the Nitto 8B finals. He'll be back at the Nitto 8B finals this year. So that's a big opportunity for him. But yeah, in terms of this tournament, singles disappointing, and doubles, it was good. It was good in the doubles. He played well. So, I've given him a 5, but maybe that is a bit harsh. Maybe he does deserve a 6 given his doubles performance.
Yeah, so I gave him a 7. I panned it out to a 6 there, but I gave him a 7 just because of his doubles. Singles he'll be disappointed with, no doubt, but he was really good on the doubles court. I watched the semis and also the final, and it's funny, I go back to the Australian Open this year. I watched the whole Russian team training out on show court 3. I was the only one in the stands. No one was there for some reason, and I was watching them training. And this was before Karatsev had his big breakout. But him and Karatsev were belting the ball, belting it. And I said to a couple of my mates afterwards, I was like, Rublev's going to have a breakout year. The way he's hitting that ball, he's just belting it. And yeah, he did it all week in doubles here. It was probably the reason they got so deep is because they were beating teams who would park themselves at the net just because they absolutely whack the ball at them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's brute power, isn't it, from both sides? And you wouldn't want to be on the end of a forehand to the body, because that would hurt.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Yeah. And I guess just quickly before we end it, that's the reason why Piers and Polasek won, was because they were getting everything back. They weren't scared of the ball. They didn't even allow Rublev and Karatsev to come into the net. I don't think they cared. They were just happy to stay at the net and just beat off the power and really control it.
Sure.
Matteo Berettini out early. Disappointing tournament for the Italian.
Yeah, very disappointing tournament for the Italian. I expected big things from him at this particular Masters 1000 event. I thought that although the courts were slow, I thought he was primed to have a really good run, but it wasn't to be. A really early seed at this particular tournament, but he fell early as well. So I've given him a 4. Berrettini, kind of like Rublev, will also qualify for Turin later in the year, given his position. And that will be big for him because it will be in his home country. And you could tell that in recent interviews that he's been thinking about that a lot. It's on his mind. So he needs to kind of regroup, knowing that he's got a massive tournament, one of the biggest in his career. I mean, not every player is lucky enough to play at a home Grand Slam. So to play at a home ATP finals and to qualify is a huge deal. So that's what he'll be looking to now. But yeah, for this particular tournament, I've given him a 4.
I gave him a 4 as well. Alex Diemena, I was so impressed by Diemena this week. I just thought, I was looking at his year as a whole, disappointing, and I'm going to judge him harshly because I know, what he's capable of doing. And I thought, going back to the Australian Open, he sort of tried to change his game a little bit this year, play a much more aggressive brand. We saw that ultra-aggressive brand at the Australian Open, which, got him nowhere against Fognini. I thought he tried to do that all year, and this was actually the first tournament where I can say this was like the old Diemena, just roadrunner around the court. Wasn't necessarily playing such an attacking brand, but was super, super consistent, getting everything back. What did you think of his tournament?
I totally agree in terms of the change of tactic. It was very evident in this tournament. It almost seems as though he had said to himself that, this week that the opponent is really going to have to beat me. I'm going to go back to my old game and they're going to have to beat me. And he knows that his skills are obviously his speed. He's got great determination and he has great touch and feel as well to be able to get some of these balls back. And we were able to see some vintage Diemena points throughout the tournament. I obviously had a good second round against another Aussie Vukich, which we'll talk about soon. That was a good draw for him because it could have potentially been a tougher draw than that. But I thought what was really impressive was his win against Christian Garin. Garin obviously being a seed in the tournament, he took care of Garin easily. We know Garin's favourite surface is clay, but that was still a very impressive win by Diemena. To get back-to-back wins, you could see that he got confidence from that. And then the Tsitsipas game, he was very good in as well. I mean, that match nearly going for 3 hours. He had chances there in the second set. In the third set, he just got tired, and the weight of shot from Tsitsipas was just too much. I mean, Tsitsipas is a class player, and it's an interesting one now for Alex in terms of his head-to-head against Tsitsipas because he hasn't beaten him at the tour. I think it's 5 and zip or 6 and zip, one of those. But yeah, he hasn't defeated him since a challenger in Surbiton a long way back. And really, the first time Tsitsipas got him was in the next gen ATP finals way back when they were both playing in that. And
I remember
Alex
that.
hasn't been able to crack him since. So I've given Alex an 8 for this tournament, but I think that rivalry with Tsitsipas, I want to see the matchup again because I think now it's on Alex's mind. I mean, you've got to think this is a guy that he grew up with in terms of, in the tennis circles, we kind of saw Diemena and Tsitsipas together for a little bit of time. Tsitsipas is now, the world number 3, and Alex is a good player, but he'll want to change that record. So watch this space in terms of that rivalry because it's very one-sided to Tsitsipas, but Alex will want to change that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think I remember they played each other at the Australian Open Juniors. I was at the game. It was on Show Court 3. This is like going back a couple of years ago. And it was evident that they were going to both be really good players. I think people rated Diemena higher, in his junior days. But Tsitsipas just broke onto the scene in a much bigger way. And I guess it's the thing with Diemena is Tsitsipas is actually a really good example. When he comes up against these players who simply have more power than him, he's not going to beat them by playing that aggressive game. And I think he's found out this year, it's obvious that at the end of last year, Diemena said, all right, well, I'm 20 in the world. To get to that next step, he thought he needed to become more aggressive, change his game a little bit. I actually don't think that's the case. I think he can probably get to the top 15, top 10 playing his Roadrunner brand. But, if that's his peak, it's still bloody good. I mean, we don't know yet where he's going to land, but top 10, I'll be taking that every day of the week.
For sure. Absolutely.
We're going to quickly talk about the player he beat in the second round, an Aussie, Alexander Vukich. Will, I've been following Vukich for a couple of years now, and I was so excited and so impressed to see his this week at Indian Wells.
Yeah, fantastic for him to get in the main draw to start off with. And a very credible performance against Diemena. That first set was obviously tied. In fact, both sets were tied at 7-5, 6-4. But no credit to him for getting into the main draw. Let's just hope he can continue to play at that level. As we know, as a lower ranked player, it can be very hard to get these opportunities at Masters 1000 level and at Grand Slam level. So great for him to have that experience. And let's just hope he continues to build on that. But yeah, I think a 7 is a solid rating for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I've given him a 7. I think something I've watched him now since he was a junior, and he went down the college route. So he went to college. He's come out a really good player. Something I've noticed about him, though, is he plays much better against high-ranked opponents. He's just one of those guys. Going back to the Sydney International a couple of years ago, he qualified for his first ATP Tour event while he was at college. I think he was unranked. And I think he lost to Feliciano Lopez in the first round, but it was really close. He won a set. And then obviously this year's Australian Open, I sat out there in the sun watching him against Khachanov, and he was up. It was a set all, and I think he was up a double break, 4 or 5 love in the third, and then ended up losing that match. But he's shown that he's more than capable of playing next to these guys. And against Diemena, who had a really good week, he wasn't wiped off the court at all. It was a really even match.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very even match. And yeah, great experience for him. Let's hope that in the Australian summer we get to see more of him, because
absolutely,
yeah, always good to see new talents coming through.
For sure. Kasparood, interesting once again, goes down to Schwartzman in the round of 16. What did you make of his tournament? I feel as if he'd probably be disappointed with that result.
Yeah, he will be. I mean, it was the game against Schwartzman was a bit bizarre, to be honest. I mean, he went down 6-3, 6-3. Going into that one, I thought that Ruud was the favourite, but he didn't play like it whatsoever. Diego was pretty much all over him. It was a very comfortable win, really, for Diego in the end. So, I mean, Kaspar's had an outstanding year. He is very high in the race to 10. He's 8. He's 9 now. His world ranking is 9, so he's cracked the 10. He's up to 9 now. So he's had a great year. An interesting tournament. I think he'll be disappointed that he went out when he did, but I've given him a 7 because he did play really good tennis up until that point. He had a good win against Lloyd Harris, who's also had quite a good year himself. So yeah, I've given Ruud a 7.
Yeah, I actually I gave him a 5, to be honest. He won 2 games and then went down in straights to Schwartzman. I thought those 2 matches he won, as a top 10 player, you expect him to win those. So yeah, I thought it was just a bang on average tournament for Ruud compared to the year he's had. Maybe I'm being harsh because he's had, such a remarkable year. But yeah, I think panning out to a 6 is probably fair.
Yep, I agree.
Felix Auger-Aliassime, this was another early exit. He'd be disappointed with his tournament, I'm sure.
Yeah, Felix would be very disappointed. I mean, he basically he had to bye in the first round, so he lost his first match, and easily to Ramos Finola 6-4, 6-2. This was as an upset, and there's losing, and then there's losing comfortably when you're a seeded player, and this was a comfortable loss, 6-4, 6-2 to Ramos Finola, who, as we know, his favoured surface is clay. This is a very disappointing loss for Felix. It hurts him in his hopes of making the ATP finals. And yeah, I mean, he probably won't make it now. He had a faint chance. He had to play well this tournament. He won't make it now. There's too many players ahead of him, I think. So, yeah, disappointing for Felix. I've given him a 4 for his event.
Yeah, I actually gave him a 3. I mean, he didn't win a match. He went down comprehensively to, an unseeded player. Do you feel as if the pressure maybe got to him of trying to, knowing he had to do well to make Turin?
Yeah, absolutely. And remember the last time I guess in 2019 when we had Indian Wells and then Miami back to back, he had a really good stretch of matches in that time. He made the semifinals in Miami, but at Indian Wells he played very well as well. And I think by memory he beat Tsitsipas in 2019 Indian Wells. So he's coming back at a pace where he has done well, and there is a bit of expectation when you come back to somewhere that you've done well in the past. So yeah, it was just a shock. I thought he would play some really good tennis in the desert, but no, it didn't happen out in his first match, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Hubert Hurkacz through to the quarters, was one of Grigor Dimitrov's victims. This was another. I mean, look, we've picked out the best of the bunch here, so they've all been really interesting. But I thought his match against Dimitrov was particularly interesting, considering he as well, had a big opportunity to win this tournament. Was he? I think he could have possibly been the highest remaining seed at the time of his match against Dimitrov.
Yeah, I mean, he would have been right up there. The match against Grigor, like a lot of matches that Grigor played this week, seesawed. When it got to the third set tiebreak, I did think Hubert was going to be able to come on top. He played some good tennis early in that match, but the longer the match went on, the tighter he got. And as I said, it did seesaw. But I always had this feeling throughout the match that Hubie's going to pull through here, but he didn't. Grigor got him in the third set breaker. So I have given Hubie a 7 for his tournament, though. Solid run to the quarterfinals. And the other thing that this tournament did do for Hurkacz is now he has cracked the top 10, and that's a first. He's only the second Polish man ever to be in the top 10 of the ATP rankings. So, despite his quarterfinal, still a solid tournament and, a good milestone for him to achieve.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've given him a 7 as well. Denis Shapovalov, I was absolutely shocked. I was actually, thinking this was going to be possibly a breakout for him. I don't know why. Coming into the tournament, I looked at his draw and I thought there's a chance here that he might possibly go through and maybe even win a Masters. I just had a feeling, and I was so wrong because he went out first up. He'd be bitterly disappointed.
Yeah, it was bizarre, really. I mean, he had that first match he had against Pospisil. Pospisil retires, so he gets through 3 loves. So he basically hasn't played a match, and he gets through to the third round. It then comes up against Karatsev, and I mean, Karatsev did play very, very well, but he couldn't match him.
Yeah.
He couldn't match his firepower. He was hitting very, very deep in the court. We didn't see any of the flair that we're used to seeing from Shapovalov. It was flat performance. It was a really flat performance from him. He went down 6-2 in the second set, goes down in straight sets, and disappointing for Shapovalov. Another one similar to Felix, who I thought was going to have a really good tournament. So as you did. So I've given him a 3 for his tournament. Disappointing from Denis.
Also gave him a 3. And as you said, I mean, I thought that matchup against Karatsev was a really good matchup for him. I thought, well, Aslan's going to belt the ball at him. He's just going to be able to control it and hit him off the court. But I was very wrong. Went down, as you mentioned, quite convincingly. Yannick Sinner beat our Aussie, John Millman, in the second round, but went down in the round of 16, I think, because he got a walkover. Well, he got a bye in the first round, beat Millman, then got a walkover against Isner, and then went down to Fritz. What did you make of Sinner's tournament?
Yeah, I thought he was real. I mean, there's a lot of results we didn't expect at Indian Wells. I didn't expect Yannick Sinner to go down to Taylor Fritz 6-4, 6-3. I thought that as the draw was opening up a little bit, that this was going to suit a player like Yannick. I thought it was a really good opportunity for him. I know it's going early at the round of 16, but I did think it was a good opportunity for him to go really deep. We'd seen him make the final at Miami earlier in the year, where he lost to Hurkacz. But yeah, he didn't find his A game when he came up against Fritz. And he didn't just come up against Fritz, he came up against a crowd as well that really got behind the American. It was a solid tournament. As you said, though, he did get the walkover. It was a good win against Millman. I mean, we'll talk about John soon, but he completely outplayed John, and John knew that as well as what he said to him at the net. So, a solid tournament for Yannick. A big couple of weeks coming up for him as well in his season. So I've given him a 7.
Yeah, I actually gave him a 5. I just thought, he got the 2 byes. He beat Millman, and then that was really it. Was beaten in straights by Fritz. I think a 6 overall is fair.
Sure. Yep.
Let's quickly touch on Johnny Millman because you feel for him. I mean, he's said, numerous times, and he said on our show a couple of weeks ago, I think he'd like to be home right now.
Yeah.
I think he'd like to have his feet up in Brisbane, in front of the telly, just freshen up before the Australian summer. But, it's very difficult to get a flight home, as he was explaining to us a couple of weeks ago on the first serve. Very difficult to get home. What does he do? Does he stay and play these Masters? He actually produced a really, really good first round win. I watched his match against Jack Sock in full, and I thought he was brilliant, dug deep, probably could have lost that match. But yeah, I think, clearly outclassed by Sinner.
Yeah, as you said, the win against Sock was really impressive because there was drama in that match as well. And
yeah,
as you know, when you're coming up against someone who's playing in their home country on the biggest court, it's never easy. And that match, particularly when it got tight in the third set, had the opportunity to really get away from John, but he dug really, really deep. So that was a really impressive win to win that particular match. The match against Sinner, he was just, as we said before, just outclassed. Yannick's a quality young player, and John really wasn't in the match at any stage, I didn't feel, throughout that. And the scoreline kind of reflects how the game played out, 6-2, 6-2. So, yeah, given Johnny a 5, solid tournament. I think as Australian tennis fans, we hope that first and foremost John's okay, and that he's able to get home at the end of the year and have some time off, and then is ready to go before next year, because he's such a good guy. He's not only a good guy for tennis, but he's a great guy for Australian sport. He's a really lovable character. So hope to see him back, and just happy, because as you said, there's been times this year where it hasn't really felt, given that he's been away for so long, that he's been in the happiest place. So I hope he can get home soon and be really happy and in a better place.
Yeah, absolutely agree. In saying that win over Sock, that was vintage Millman. That was like third set, dug deep at Masters. It was great stuff. Our other Aussie in the men's draw, Lexi Popyrin, first up got a win and then went down to her catch in the second round. What did you make of Lexi's tournament?
Yeah, I mean, well, no shame going down to her cash, quality player, now a top 10 player. Good win in the first round against Kekmanovic. Kekmanovic, he has some weapons himself. He's not an easy task. So that's a good win for Popyrin to get through that match. I mean, we'll see what Alexi can do for the rest of the year, but he's had some really good moments at particularly big events. You speak to some people in Australian tennis, and they do say that Alexi loves the big moment, and he does. His actually record shows that when it comes to the big events, he can actually play some really good tennis, particularly at the slam level. I mean, won his first round match, but couldn't get it done in the second round. Giving him a 5.
Yeah, I've given him a 5 as well. I've said this all along about Popper, and I think he's definitely our most talented player currently on the tour. We're not going to include Kyrgios, but rising players, I think Popyrin is, he's the one. And it's going to take longer because he's a big body and, has a lot of X factor, a big game to grow into, has to still learn how to harness his abilities. But he's the one. I mean, his Grand Slam record speaks for itself. He's always played well at the Slam since really he first got his opportunity at the Australian Open a couple of years ago. So, looking forward to seeing Alexi next year.
For sure. Absolutely.
Taylor Fritz, this was a marvellous tournament, I thought, by the American.
Loved it. And it was really important for the tournament, I think, that Taylor had a good run because, as we've kind of touched on, some seeds, would have some performances they wanted to forget. Whereas to see Taylor have a great run in his home state of California, it was a good storyline. It was a really good storyline for the tournament. Some huge wins for him. To beat Beretini, Sinner, and Zverev in consecutive matches is an incredible tournament. So kudos to him. I've given him a 9. The only reason he didn't get a 10 is probably because he didn't win the tournament. But, I mean, he played fantastic tennis.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've given him a 9 as well. I'm just checking now as we speak where he sits in the live rankings. And he's moved all the way up to 28. So, he should be seeded for the Australian Open, providing he finishes the season strongly, which is significant for him.
Absolutely, for sure.
Grigor Dimitrov, bizarre, but great, really. I mean, through to the semis, went down to the eventual champion. So, certainly not disgraced, and took down the number 1 seed. So Dimitrov will for sure be giving this tournament a tick.
Oh, absolutely. It was great to see Grigor. There were signs. I don't want to say it was Grigor 2017, but there were signs of Grigor 2017 in the way that he played. People will talk about, when they look at this event, people will talk about his win over Medvedev and then Hurkacz. I thought his win against Riley Opelka before playing Medvedev was a really, really good win as well. Riley's had a great year himself. He's an American playing on home soil. Dimitrov handled his serve, magnificently. I mean, Opelka's got a huge serve, but Grigor was very, very good on the return in that game. Beat him 6-3, 6-4. And then, solid performances, obviously, to beat Daniel Medvedev. I mean, that was a Houdini act. That'll be the greatest escape in 2021. If someone wants to tell you who did the greatest escape, it was Grigor at Indian Wells. And then again, to win that third set breaker against Hurkacz is, again, pretty clutch. So didn't get the job done in the semi-final, but one feels that, he'd spent a lot of petrol tickets to get to that particular point of the tournament anyway. And he isn't as young as the other guys he was up against. So, fantastic effort from Grigor to make the semis. I've given him a 9.
Given him a 9 as well. Nicholas Bassey, crazy he made the final. But, hats off. He played really well all week.
He did. Brett and I were speaking about this on some of the live streams I've been doing this week. When you watch Basilashvili play, he just hits the ball so hard, but it's almost like this is his A plan or plan A. And if it's not a plan A, it can go horribly wrong. However, this week, the plan A went very, very right in a lot of his matches, and it went right at the right times. So he had good wins over Tsitsipas in the quarterfinals. He then backed that up in the semis against Taylor Fritz. And then, in the final today, he had some chances. After winning that first set 6-3, he then had chances in the second as well. But then once it got to a third, he went off. His game went off. But a great tournament for him. A fantastic tournament for him to make the final of a Masters 1000. So I've given him a 9.
Yeah, I bumped him up to a 9.5. I just thought, probably better than Fritz and Dimitrov. Went that extra set, but didn't win it. So I've given him a 9.5. We'll talk about Norrie in a minute. But just before we do on the double side of things, we have to mention the efforts of the Aussie John Peers and his Slovakian partner, Filip Polasek. It was an incredible tournament, their first title together, and just great to see Peers back on the winners list.
Magnificent for John Peers. Really magnificent. They were great doubles matches as well. I mean, that final was not an easy final. Fantastic effort from him to win the tournament. Indian Wells, a tournament he hadn't yet won I believe. So, fantastic for him. You got to give him a 10, right? I mean, he won the tournament. It's fantastic.
Definitely giving him a 10. I'm just looking. I think they only dropped one set this week, and it was in the first round to Escobar and Behar. So from that moment onwards, they didn't drop a single set. Just marvelous. And I watched them. I watched every US Open match that they played together. They took a while to get going, Peers and Polasek. I think they lost their first 2 tournaments in the first round. Their third tournament, they won the first round, lost in the second round. So it took them a while to get going. They then get to the US Open, make the semis, they make the final in San Diego, and now they win in Indian Wells. It was that gradual, sort of improvement, but they got there in the end, and very, very pleased for them because they've had a really good run. Will, time to talk about the champion, Cam Norrie. What a remarkable tournament.
Magnificent for Cam. Magnificent. I mean, the first British man to win the men's singles at Indian Wells, and I believe the 5th left-hander to win at Indian Wells, which knowing the tournament history is quite interesting. He's in good company as well, with Nadal being the last one to win as a left-hander, and then before that, Marcelo Rios. So, fantastic effort from Cam Norrie. I thought what we've seen from him this year is a guy that he doesn't miss. He's almost a wall. Like when he gets in the mode, he just does not miss. Very solid off both sides. And he makes you, if you're going to beat Cam Norrie, you have to be consistent until the first ball to the last ball. If you go off, he does make you pay because you know what you're going to get from him. He's made 6 finals this year, a couple of titles. And wow, there's a distinct possibility now that Cam Norrie could be in the top 8 players of the year and on his way to Turin, which is amazing in itself. So
I was going to say, he's up to a career high 13 in the ranks. It's just, that to me is just remarkable, really. I mean, he's clearly the breakout player of the year. I'm just looking at these rankings here. You know, he's only a couple of 100 points off that top 8. I think he's 800 points. So if he can have a good tournament in Paris, really has every chance of making it.
Absolutely, yeah. He's a big chance. As you said, the Paris will be the key for him. But yeah, we've got to give him a 10 for his tournament, win the title, deserve a 10.
Absolutely. Now, let's quickly turn our attention to the women's side of things. We'll kick it off with Karolina Pliskova. Do you want to get us underway here? What do you think of her tournament?
Yeah, Karolina, I mean, came into the tournament as the top seed, looked good in the first couple of matches, but then played a really, really poor match, I thought. So she'll be disappointed. I mean, a lot of seeds went down, not just on the women's side, but also on the men's side. I've given her a rating of 5. You just expect better than the top seed to go out when she did. Disappointing for Karolina.
Yeah, it was. I've given her a 5 as well. Iga Swiatek, how do you rate her tournament?
Yeah, I mean, Iga Swiatek came into this tournament as the 2nd seed, so a high seed, and had pretty good run. But then came up against Badosa, I think it was, and went down. So lost to the eventual champion. Did look solid though. I've given her a 7 because she had a good run up until then, but lost to the eventual champion.
Just looking here, sorry, at Swiatek's tournament, it was actually Ostapenko who she went down to.
Yes. Yeah.
In that round of 16 match, 6-4, 6-3.
Yeah, I mean, Ostapenko had a good tournament herself, making the semis. So solid for Swiatek, but as the 2nd seed, she would have hoped she could have gone deeper.
Yep, I've given her a 7 as well. Barbora Kratchikova, the French Open champion, who has had a seriously impressive season. How did you rate her tournament, Will?
Yeah, she has. She has had a good season. French Open champion. She hasn't lost many games at all this year.
Yeah.
And the thing is that when she wins matches as well, she wins them comfortably. She doesn't actually lose many sets, Kratchikova. So yeah, magnificent season, a solid tournament. Again, when lots of seeds falling around her, I thought she could be one that was going to be right at the end of the semi-finals and the finals, but went out a bit earlier than expected. So no, I've given her a 7.
I'm just looking here at her run since her French Open triumph. This is actually crazy. She's only lost to 3 players since the French Open. It's Bassey a couple times. She lost to Sabalenka in the US Open quarterfinals. And then she goes down to the eventual champion in Badosa in the round of 16 here. So definitely I will give her a 7, but it's quite crazy how she's literally lost to 3 players only since the French Open. I mean, it's been nearly 6 months.
Yeah. I mean, incredible. Another storyline you just couldn't have picked in 2021.
Elena Svitolina, how'd you rate her tournament?
Yeah, well, Elena Svitolina really struggled in this particular tournament. She looked okay in the first couple of rounds, but then she went down to Jessie Pegula, and Jessie Pegula actually had a great tournament herself.
Yeah.
But this was an unexpected result because of the way in which she lost. She went down 6-1, 6-1 to Jessie Pegula, which I was not expecting. So a good tournament up until then, but not a good way to exit that easily. So I've given her a 6.
I've given her a 6 as well. Garbine Muguruza went down to our Aussie, Arla Tomljanovic. How'd you rate her tournament as a whole?
Yeah, well, this was a great result from an Australian perspective, but a disappointing result for Garbine. Obviously, Garbine having the bye in the opening round. This is the only match she played. just a huge win for Tomljanovic, and we'll get to her in a second. Garbine had a chance, though. I thought after she won the second set in this particular match that she was going to run away with the third. She didn't, and she went down. So I think she was the fifth seed in this tournament. So to go down in basically a first match as the fifth seed, I've given her a 4.
I gave her a 4 as well. We may as well talk now about the woman that beat her, Ayla Tomljanovic, and she's just had a first-up win at the Kremlin Cup, which is good to see in Russia. But summing up her week at Indian Wells, I thought she was marvellous and, a very well-deserved win over Muguruza.
Magnificent win. I think it's a really career-defining win for Ayla Tomljanovic. She's capable of this sort of tennis. She has a big game. And she's had a great year to this point. She made the Wimbledon quarterfinals. We know she's capable of this tennis. It's so good for her and so good for us to see her doing this at a big tournament like Indian Wells. Then backed it up against Zidanšek in the next rounds, eventually going down to Angie Kerber, who is a great player in her own right. And Kerber had a great run herself all the way to the semis. So, great tournament for Ayla. I've given her just checking my rating here, 9. I've given her a 9 for a tournament.
I gave her a 9 as well. It's crazy because, she did go down. I'm looking here. I think she went down in the round of 16. So, she didn't go that deep. But it's more the fact that she got that top 10 win and then she backed it up, taking down Zidanšek in straight sets in the following match. So, I agree. I think we look back at her Australian Open and she's had that nail-biting defeat to, I think it was Simona Halep at the Australian Open and had opportunities to win that match. So you look at that, and that was almost the match of the women's tournament at the Australian Open. And that really, I think, foreshadowed the year that she's had. Big breakout year for her. And I think she's capable of being inside the top 20 at her peak. I think I'd love to see her get there. It's been frustrating sort of to watch her over the past couple of years because I think she's capable of more. But finally, the second half of this year has just been unbelievable. So, a 9 is a good rating. Will, Emma Raducanu, now I know she's one of your favourites. She coming off the US Open, this was her first tournament back, and she went down in the first round to Sasnovich. Look, it's very difficult to rate her, but what did you think of her tournament?
Well, I was going to be, this is a tough one to rate. One, because of, the fact that, as you said, she's coming off the US Open. And 2, because the player that she lost to, although you wouldn't expect her to make the US Open champion to lose to Sasnovich then, after beating Raducanu, beat Simona Halep, who's a good player in herself.
Exactly.
So it's a tough player to rate. I have given Emma a 4, given the fact that she is the US Open champion going out in her very next match. But that is a bit harsh. Maybe it should have been a 5. But just an off day for Emma. Let's hope that she can get back to some good tennis. But nothing will ever take away from that US Open run. She'll have that. That goes down in history. So a poor tournament. But you can't be too critical of an 18-year-old after all, I don't think.
Absolutely agree. But we're not going to rate Sasnovich, but I just want to touch on her very quickly because you're right. She came through, made it all the way to the round of 16 by beating Raducanu and Halep, and she lost in the round of 16 to Azarenka, who was the eventual finalist. So Raducanu didn't go down to anyone poor. It was a really, really good run by Sasnovich.
Yeah.
Will Petra Kavitova talk to me about her tournament?
Yeah, Petra Kavitova. Whenever you look at a hard court tournament with Petra Kavitova, you have to think about her as a player that is going to go deep because she has the experience and she has the game to really trouble a lot of the women's field. She comes up against the eventual finalist in Victoria Azarenka and goes down in what I thought was a really entertaining match. It was 7-5, 6-4 in the end. But it was a really good match between 2 Grand Slam champions. A good matchup for people that like to see kind of, not veterans, but 2 experienced players coming up against each other. It was a good match. A solid tournament for Petra. Before that, she had a good win against Rus, but I guess that was the only match that she played because she had the bye in the opening round. So for a rating for Petra, I've given her a 7 just because I thought she came up against a very, very good player in Azarenka.
No, I think a seven's fair. I've given her a 7 as well. I'm just looking here at her draw, and I do agree. It's a pretty fair result. And she also had a good win over Roos in the second round, who's actually had a pretty good year. Maria Sakari, this was very disappointing. I think she'll be really disappointed with her tournament.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The thing with Maria Sakari is that she's coming off a very, very good result at the US Open. You'd think you should be bringing in that confidence. Sometimes when players go deep into a tournament but they don't win them, they gain form, but they don't have the expectation of the person who's the champion. In this instance, the Raducanu, who's the champion, has all the expectation going on her, whereas Sakari, you would think, would bring in a lot of momentum going into this event. She doesn't have the same media hype or coverage, but she comes in with a lot of momentum. Anyway, it went pear-shaped for Sakari, losing in her first match that she played against Golubic, and poorly as well. I mean, she won the opening set, but it was tight, it was ugly, and then the last 2 sets weren't pretty for Sakari either. So, yeah, disappointing tournament for her. Good player to watch, but didn't play her best tennis at Indian Wells, so I've given her a 3.
I've given her a 3 as well. I will note, I think Golubic is a really good player. She'll be good. But you expect Sakari to win that, and going down the way she did, I think a 3 is fair. The last couple, Simona Halep, how'd you rate her?
Yeah, well, Simona Harp obviously is coming back from a fair bit of time away from tour. I thought she looked really good against Marta Kostyuk. Had a good second set there. The first set was tight, but then won the second set 6-1 and looked reasonably good in that match. And then went down to Sasnovich, who obviously had, as we talked about before, the win over Raducanu. So, Halep's still yet to find that best level tennis that we know she can play, but she is getting there. So I've given her a 6. But yeah, I'm hoping to see a fully fit and I guess a match trained, a match hardened Simona Halep soon with more matches under her belt.
Absolutely. I think we'll see that at the Australian Summer of Tennis. I've given her a 6 as well. Angie Kerber, I'm loving Kerber's second half of the year. She's gotten back to that form, not quite the form that she won slams with, but she's nearly there. I'm really happy to see her go deep.
Yeah, so am I. I mean, semi-final berth here at Indian Wells. I thought she played one of the really good matches of Wimbledon against Ash Barty in that semi-final. I thought that was a great match, and she seems to have brought that confidence that she got from Wimbledon throughout the rest of the season. So yeah, solid tournament from her. Gave her an 8. Goes down to Badosa in the semis. But yeah, a very solid tournament for Angie, playing good tennis.
Yep, I agree. Elena Sepenko also made the semi-finals. Will, how'd you rate her efforts?
Yeah, Elena Ostapenko, she actually, if you look at her draw, she actually had a fantastic run to the semi-finals. So she beat Swiatek.
Looking at it now, amazing.
She then beat Shelby Rogers, who had a really big opportunity in that match. She was down in the third set against Shelby. She escaped, got the win there, and then obviously came up against Azarenka in what was a very, very good semi-final match, a tough semi-final match that Azarenka won 7-5 in the third. So, very solid tournament for Elena Ostapenko. There's always, how do we put it? There's always action when Elena is on the court. It's never a dull match. So I've given her an 8. And yeah, she's a tricky player to beat, Ostapenko. She really is. She's a tough competitor.
I think her serve is the only thing letting her down. That serve is hard to watch sometimes. It's crazy she won a slam with that serve, and it's never improved. But yeah, also worth noting that win against Sue Shui in the second round was a solid result as well. Just before we get to the 2 finalists, Will, Astra Sharma qualified for the main draw and had an unbelievable first round win over Donna Vekic. How'd you rate her tournament?
Yeah, very good win over Donna Vekic. Vekic has been a good player in her own right. Astra, we know that she's capable of some really, really good tennis, as we were talking about before with Vukich on the men's side, just about getting these opportunities, getting yourself into these events to have the opportunity to play and to win these ranking points and to build your way up. So fantastic for her to qualify, even better for her to have that win against Vukich. So yeah, good tournament for her. I have given her a 7.
Gave her a 7 as well. Very interesting the way she went out, though. Second round against Kasatkina. she fired, away at the start. I think she raced away to a 4-1 lead. I was watching it. She was dominating. I thought, gee, she's in good nick. She's just beaten Vukich. She's up early against Kasatkina and retired out of nowhere. So, yeah, hopefully wishing her well and hope that we can see her back on the court before the end of the season.
For sure. Absolutely.
Victoria Azarenka, the finalist, a remarkable tournament. Amazing to see her back playing at this level. And she's won the BNP Paribas Open before, so it was good to see her back in a final.
So good to see her back, a two-time champion of this event. She's actually won, I need to remember the women, but she's only won, there's only 3 women that have won more matches than her, I think, at Indian Wells. Sharapova's won, can't remember the other 2 off my head, but she's won so many matches in the desert. She's very experienced there. A great run for her to make the final. Some very clutch performances on the way. We just spoke about a semi-final victory against Ostapenko, which was a great win for her. And you can't help but really appreciate what Azarenka has done over the last 12 months. Obviously, a great run of the US Open last year. And she just continues to really fight. Sometimes it's not the prettiest tennis throughout, but she wins a lot of close matches just through toughing it out. And she did that in the semis, and she nearly did that again today. So, it's so good to see Azarenka playing some great tennis again. They gave her a 9 for a good tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And up to 29 in the ranks now. So she jumps up another 3 spots, which is good to see. I gave her a 9 as well. The last player we're going to rate, the champion on the women's side, just an outstanding way to cap off what has been a remarkable season, really, for Paula Badosa. Will, take us through this one.
This is great for Spanish tennis. This is really, really good for Spanish tennis. So I just want to say that off the top. Obviously, we know Spain has had so many great men's players. They've had great women's players as well. But in the era of Nadal, it's hard not for other players to be overshadowed just because how good Nadal is. But it's so good for Spanish tennis to see a rising female star in Paula Badosa playing the way in which she is. I've obviously had Muguruza, who's been fantastic winning Grand Slams, but this is great for Spanish tennis to have Badosa. Some fantastic wins across the way. And again today, that match was an epic match. Could have gone either way. She was able to hold her nerve in the tiebreaker, and all the emotions came out after the match, as they should when you win a Masters 1000 at Indian Wells. So yeah, nothing but a 10 for Paula Badosa. Fantastic tournament for her.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen her. She played Ash Barty twice earlier in the year in Miami in the semis, and she actually beat her in Charleston. And, I think since then her year's really taken off. She's just, she won in Serbia. She had a really good run at the French Open to the quarterfinals, lost 8-6 in the quarterfinals at the French Open. So could have gone even deeper there. Obviously at Wimbledon, made it to the round of 16. So she's had a really good year, and this is a great way to cap it off. I think, obviously you look at her US Open as well. Disappointing going down in the second round, but then coming out in Indian Wells and winning the tournament, it's an amazing way to capitalize on a fantastic season. So I agree, it's great for Spanish tennis.
Absolutely. Yeah, and can't wait to see her in Australia in 2022. Definitely one to watch.
Absolutely one to watch. And of course, a 10 out of 10 for Paula Badosa. Will, thank you. It's been great.
Thanks, Jedd. Yeah, really appreciate doing these player ratings with you. And look forward to doing it again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Will. And tune into the First Serve this week's edition. John Peers and Storm Sanders on the show. Definitely don't want to miss that. Peers fresh off an Indian Wells triumph. Thank you so much for tuning into the Indian Wells player ratings. We'll catch you all soon.